This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology and GNC Week in Review is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. Speaking of the possibility of e-waste, in a whole different way, Amazon's getting ready to launch 2 test satellites for its internet constellation. Upcoming project, whatever you want to call it. It's obviously intended to compete directly with Starlink. Because those two, they're just trying to one-up each other on everything they do. Maybe we'll get an Amazon flamethrower. Who knows? Fun little callback to earlier in the show. So in a press release on Wednesday, the company said that the prototypes will be riding into orbit on a Vulcan Centaur rocket in early 2023. Obviously, these internet constellations have had positive impacts. The head of the Tech Podcast Network has Starlink himself. We've seen what it's done in other parts of the world where internet has been cut off. But there's also a lot of complaints about what it does to the sky. Oftentimes, these things can easily be seen. They can screw up the actual constellations, things like that. And the sky is filled with space junk or e-waste. It just happens to be significantly larger than a Fire phone, if we're talking about e-waste, and floating in space-ish, depending on how far it is. So, there's definitely positives and negatives here. I don't know. What do you guys think about the complaints about all of the additional satellites being put up for these essentially mesh networks?
Is it going to cause a problem? Is it going to cause that big of a problem in outer space?
So some of it has caused issues with the ground-based GPS at one point that was using some constellation-based stuff. It's causing problems for some of the space observatories. Now, is it a problem for you or I or an astronaut? Generally, no. Yeah, the space station was hit by space junk, but my guess is unless these prototypes are a complete failure, that these won't necessarily become space junk, but they could. So many satellites do. Although I did hear that there was a plan from the UN maybe to have a timeline on abandoned hardware. I don't know how that would work, but
oh man, I mean, I think the biggest problem is the things being blown up, right? Because what's the name of it? If this happens, if there's too much space junk, then we literally can't have any more satellites, or no one can leave the Earth. I forget what the name of that effect is.
Yeah,
but
it's basically like a fishnet.
Yeah, you can't. So there have been times where I think I forget what country it was, like blew up a satellite or something. Like, oh man, I mean that would be a disaster for all of human beings. So I think it's great when they put more satellites up there. We better come up with some good ways to capture some of the space junk that is up there now, the debris, because there's definitely been situations where it almost caused serious tragedy on the International Space Station. And if
Right.
there's too much debris, we may reach a point where we can no longer have satellites. And that would be like going back in technology a long way. So I really hope that it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, and if you look at this, so for Amazon to keep the FCC license that they have obtained, they've got to have, you ready for this, half of their satellites in orbit by 2026. Now, how many is that, you ask? Well, the full constellation is intended to be 3,236 satellites. That's a lot of flying garbage cans.
Yes. But it's not even the satellites themselves that are the biggest problem. It's the junk from like ones that have been broken and exploded into pieces.
Right, exactly. So, adding 3,000 more of these things up there is going to definitely annoy astronomers because they become visible through telescopes and stuff. But yeah, if this stuff doesn't work, it's just more nonsense in space. So there's a lot of pressure on Amazon, both for speed and fulfillment, right? They've got a timetable with the FCC that is in place that they're up against, but it also has to work. They can't just launch 1,600 satellites and goes, no, see, we got them up there. License is good. They've got to put them up there and they've got to work, right? So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I'm with Abram. I think it's great to have these satellites. However, the propensity for, if they don't work, like you said, Scott, flying trash cans, but also too, in the same token,
I've always called satellites that because they look like it. They look like flying metal trash cans.
But also in the same token, I think that they're trying to capture Starlink and trying to capture, as much. They want to get as much. They want to get internet providers. They want to be the choice for, and the competition is good. But I think they're coming in way too late, and they're trying to catch up, put all these satellites up in the next couple of years. And I don't know. There's a lot of doubt I have with that.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of doubt.
Especially considering they're being put up with essentially equally experimental rockets, right?
That may not work.
Right. So there's a lot of, because they also have a timetable, because they have a contract with the Space Force where they've got to have a certain number of successful launches by a certain date, or that contract is going to be revoked. So, I mean, there's a lot of like time-based scary things going on here, and a lot of experimentation, and all of that, could lead to problems and extra debris in the sky. But if everything goes well, again, competition is a good thing. If Burnt Hair is the only satellite company, then we're going to end up in the same position that Avram and I have talked about with landline internet. If there's only one service provider, the price goes up and up and up and up and up and up. But then with wireless, you've got a company like T-Mobile that comes around and goes, oh yeah, we don't care about price, watch this, and the whole industry changes. So competition will be good in this space, but it's got to work. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.